air in the living room was warm, filled with the low hum of laughter and the clinking of glasses as we all sat together, a rare family gathering. My dad was mid-story, animatedly recounting the time he went fishing, and a black bear snatched the trout right off his line. Everyone roared with laughter, even me, though my mind had begun to wander. That's when she said it. "You should tell them about the tall dog." My girlfriend Jenna chimed in casually, her tone playful but curious. I froze. The room tilted slightly as if the ground had shifted beneath me. My stomach twisted. "Not tonight," I said quickly, forcing a laugh, but my voice cracked. Her brow furrowed, and she leaned closer. "Come on, you never told me the whole story. It's just a story, right?" Before I could shut her down again, my mom, overhearing, turned to us with a puzzled look. "What's the tall dog?" The laughter in the room fizzled out like a dying candle. Conversations trailed off, leaving a heavy silence that wrapped around us like a suffocating fog. I glanced around nervously. All eyes were on me now. My father's brow creased in concern. My cousins and friends exchanged uneasy glances. Jenna stared at me expectantly, oblivious to the weight of her request. My mom placed her hand on my knee, her eyes soft but searching. "It's okay," she said gently. "You can tell us." I rubbed my face, my palms damp with sweat. My heart pounded as I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Fine," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper, "but don't say I didn't warn you." I was 8 years old, selfish, spoiled, and entitled. Yeah, I'll admit it. I hated my small room, always complaining about how unfair it was, how I deserved something better. My parents had their hands full with bills and overdue rent, but that didn't matter to me back then. I just wanted what I wanted. I remember one night, clear as day, my mom scraped together what little we had to cook a meal, a simple stew. It was all we could afford. But me? I threw a tantrum, said it looked disgusting, and stormed off. My dad, exhausted from working overtime every day, still came over, rubbed my back, and tried to calm me down. Fast forward a week, right before school started. I was in my room, playing Grand Theft Auto 3 and smoking a joint. I hated that room so much. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. And that's when it happened. The closet door creaked open, just a crack. Annoyed, I got up, muttering under my breath, and pushed it shut. 5 minutes later, it creaked again, louder this time. I rolled my eyes, cursed, and stomped over to slam it shut. But when I reached for the handle, something stopped me. A clawed hand. I stumbled back, my chest tightening. Slowly the door opened wider, and I saw it. A figure, black as midnight, with pointy ears that scraped the ceiling. Its eyes glowed white, no pupils, just orbs of light, and its mouth, that smile, a grin too wide for its face, filled with jagged, sharp teeth. "Hello, Damien," it said, its voice deep but playful, like it was mocking me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It stepped out fully, towering over me, its long limbs casting unnatural shadows across the room. "Sorry to interrupt your little smoke and game session," it said, tilting its head, "but we need to talk." I tried to scream, but nothing came out. It placed one clawed hand on my shoulder and guided me back to the bed. It sat down, too heavy, too solid, bending the mattress, and gestured for me to keep playing. "Go on," it said. "Play your little violent game. I just want to have a chat." My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the controller. It leaned closer, its grin never faltering. "You kids, always so ungrateful, so entitled. You whine, you take, you demand, and you never stop to think about what you're doing, about what you're becoming." Its breath was cold against my face. "I've been here for a long time, Damien. watching, waiting, and I've seen plenty of kids like you come and go, but you... It chuckled, a low, guttural sound that made my stomach churn. You're different. I can smell your fear. Tears blurred my vision. What do you want from me? I managed to choke out. It leaned back, its smile stretching impossibly wide. I don't want to hurt you, boy. Not yet. This is your warning. Your only warning. Change your ways, or you'll see what happens when I'm no longer so polite. It stood then, its massive form blocking out the light from my desk lamp. It turned to the closet, pausing at the door. Make me proud, Damien, it said, looking over its shoulder, its eyes burning into mine. Make me proud. And then it was gone. When I finished, the room was dead silent. No one laughed, no one spoke. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with shock. My dad looked at me like he didn't know who I was. My mom gripped my hand, tears glistening in her eyes. I looked at all of them, my chest heaving. Well, I asked, my voice trembling, did I make you proud? And in that moment, as they pulled me into their arms, I prayed that it, the tall dog, thought so too.
We should have known better. The stories about the woods in northern Arizona were well-known whispers of strange things that roamed the wilderness, things you didn't want to encounter. But we were young, stubborn, and wanted fun and adventure. The promise of elk and deer in the area was too tempting to resist. It was me, my buddy Chris, and our girlfriends, Emily and Layla. We had a solid setup, a big cabin near an old hiking trail, a classy-looking fireplace. We even brought our dog, Max, and Layla's cat, Luna, who were surprisingly inseparable. It felt like the perfect trip. That first night, we gathered around the fire, sharing drinks and stories, enjoying the coziness of the cabin. Max was curled up next to Luna, and the warmth of the fire made the chill of the outside world feel like a distant memory. Then, Max's ears perked up. He raised his head, staring at the window with an intensity that froze the room. A second later, there was a knock at the door, soft yet deliberate. We exchanged glances. Who could possibly be out here in the middle of nowhere? Chris got up and peered through the peephole. "It's two women," he said, his voice tinged with confusion. "They look normal. Native American, maybe. They don't seem threatening." Against better judgment, we opened the door. Two stunningly beautiful women stood there, wrapped in light jackets that seemed woefully inadequate for the freezing night. Their smiles were disarming. "Sorry to bother you," one of them said, her voice smooth and warm. "We were hiking and got lost. Then we saw the smoke from your chimney. It felt wrong to leave them outside, so we invited them in. Emily grabbed some blankets, and we offered them hot drinks." One of the women, who introduced herself as Ayana, smiled when Chris complimented her beauty. Her friend, Layla, giggled softly. But things started to feel off. When we asked how they got lost, they hesitated, then said their car broke down on the nature trail. That didn't make sense. They had told us a different story at the door. The room grew tense, but before we could press them, Ayana changed the subject, complimenting Max and Luna. She reached down to pet Max, but he growled, a deep, guttural sound I'd never heard from him before. Luna hissed, her fur standing on end. "Oh, they must not like strangers," Ayana said, her smile unwavering. But Max and Luna loved people. They never acted like that. It was late, 1:30 a.m. Layla suggested the women stay the night. Chris and I offered to sleep on the couch so they could take the bedrooms. As Emily and Layla led them upstairs, Ayana glanced back and winked at Chris. We tried to laugh it off. After all, we were 4 adults in a locked cabin. What could go wrong? "They're gorgeous," Chris said, pouring another drink. But it's weird how they lied. Do you think they're hiding something? Maybe they're nervous, I said, though I didn't believe it. Something about them set my nerves on edge. A creak on the stairs snapped us out of our conversation. Ayana and Layla appeared, both dressed in black robes. "We couldn't sleep," Ayana said, her voice syrupy sweet. "We thought you might keep us company." Chris and I exchanged uneasy glances. "You should get some rest," I said. Ayana ignored me. She slipped off her robe, standing there completely bare. Her smile twisted into something predatory as she moved toward Chris. Max erupted into furious barking, his teeth bared. Ayana turned to him, still smiling. "Bad dog," she said, her voice distorted, layered with something inhuman. Before we could react, she lunged at Max, grabbing him with both hands. Her strength was impossible, monstrous. She laughed as she ripped him in half. We screamed. Luna bolted upstairs and we followed, grabbing Emily and Sarah. We barricaded ourselves in the largest bedroom, shoving furniture against the door. The footsteps on the stairs started soft, almost gentle. Then they grew heavier, shaking the floorboards. I dropped to the ground and peeked under the door. What I saw still haunts me. Hairy, clawed feet stood there, impossibly large. Layla's voice came from the other side of the door. "Come out. We won't hurt you," she cooed, her tone mocking. We didn't answer. We didn't move. For hours we huddled in the dark, trembling as we listened to them pace the hallway, laughing, scratching at the door. When dawn broke, the sound stopped. Slowly, we unbarricaded the door. The cabin was empty, but the air was thick with the smell of decay. Max was gone, his blood staining the floor near the fireplace. We left everything behind and ran. To this day, none of us speak of what happened. We don't go near the woods. And when I close my eyes at night, I still see those clawed feet, still hear their laughter in the dark. John Price had seen too much in his time as a police chief. Broken lives, shattered families, and the endless churn of violence. Retirement had been his escape. The days of fieldwork, the clinking of his badge on his chest, and the sharp glare of his duty pistol were behind him now. His quiet home on the edge of town was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place to fade into obscurity. On a whim, during a visit to a local thrift store, John had picked up a rotary phone. It was a relic of the past, the sort of thing that spoke to simpler times. He liked its weight, its presence, and the nostalgia it brought. He set it on his desk in the study. It wasn't even plugged in, just a piece of harmless decor. Or so he thought.
That night, just as he drifted into the deep slumber of a man accustomed to silence, the sharp ring-ring of the rotary phone jolted him awake. He lay there, heart racing. The phone wasn't connected to anything. Was it some kind of trick? A battery-powered gimmick he hadn't noticed? Ring, ring. The sound cut through the house like a scream. Against every rational instinct, he rose from his bed and padded down the dark hallway to his study. The phone sat there, silent now, mocking him. He stared at it for a long moment, and then, as if to answer his unspoken question, it rang again. Hesitantly, John picked it up, the receiver cold against his ear. "Hello?" For a moment there was only static. Then came the voice, a low whisper, drenched in familiarity. "Hello, John. It's been a while." John froze. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The static deepened, almost crackling in laughter. "Don't look at the mirror." John's heart sank. His bedroom had a large antique mirror hanging on the wall opposite his bed, a gift from a friend years ago. Slowly, still clutching the phone, He turned his head toward the open door of his room. The caller's voice sharpened. "Don't look at it. Don't let it see you." "What do you want?" John's voice cracked, his hands shaking now. "I want to play a game," the caller replied. "Do you have a quarter?" What?" "A quarter," the voice said with deliberate calm. "Your life depends on whether it lands heads or tails." John's instincts screamed at him to hang up, to smash the phone and get out of the house. But against his better judgment, he searched his dresser and found an old coin. "Flip it," the voice ordered. His thumb trembled as he tossed the coin into the air. It clinked against the desk and spun before settling on heads. "Do you live with regrets, John?" the voice asked softly. John clenched his teeth. "That's none of your damn business." The caller chuckled, low and venomous. "Oh, but it is. Tell me, John, do you remember Robin?" The name was a punch to the gut. The image came unbidden. Robin, an 8-year-old boy found strapped to a chair in his room, burned alive in a fire started by his own father, a case that still haunted John's dreams. "I remember," John whispered, his voice hollow. "Do you remember why you were late, John?" "Because I do." The accusation hit harder than any bullet ever had. John had been drunk that night, celebrating a personal victory with a bottle of whiskey. The call had come in, but he'd been too impaired to respond in time. By the time he arrived, the boy was gone. "You let him die," the caller hissed. "Not all heroes are what they seem, are they?" John's knees buckled. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Why are you doing this?" "Flip the coin again," the caller said, ignoring his question. "No." A deafening shotgun blast exploded through the wall, spraying debris and fire into the room. John screamed as the buckshot tore into his leg, sending him sprawling to the floor. Blood poured onto the carpet as he fumbled for the coin, his hands slick with sweat and crimson. He flipped it, desperate to end the madness. It landed on tails. "Do you care if you live or die, John?" the voice asked, mocking now. John's head slumped back against the wall. "Number, I've got no family, no friends who'll call. Just a cheap metal gathering dust. I've got nothing left." "Exactly," the caller said, satisfaction dripping from the word. "Now stand up. Look at the mirror. Tell me what you see." With his strength fading, John dragged himself to his feet and limped toward the mirror. He stared at his reflection, pale and bloodied, his eyes hollow. "I see a man who has nothing left to lose," he whispered. "Exactly." Before John could react, the mirror shattered outward, and the roar of another shotgun blast filled the room. The force threw him back, the buckshot tearing through his chest. As his vision dimmed, the rotary phone rang one last time, and then silence.